My first encounter with owning a rental property was actually my own primary residence that I ended up house hacking. And it blew my mind. I could own something that usually takes money out of my pocket every single month and instead turn it into an asset that put money into my pocket every single month, turning liabilities into assets. And so we're going to dive into a case study on how I house hacked my first home, how I found it, how I underwrote it, how I ended up financing it, some of the improvements we made to it, how I rented it out to my buddies, and then how I eventually exited a few years later for a sizable profit. So let's go dive in. So when I purchased this property in 2009, there were deals all over the place. It was after the great financial collapse, and there were deals all over the MLS. Bank-owned properties, foreclosures, short sales, and so you could find literally anything on the MLS, but there was no money to go out and buy these things. There weren't debt funds and hard money lenders and private money putting any money into real estate because every headline said, run from real estate. So it's a little bit different of a market today than it was back in 2009. However, there's still deals on the MLS. There's still deals on the market. And when you think about a motivated seller, like who's more motivated than somebody who actually picks up the phone and calls a real estate agent, has them come out, sit down with them, walk them through the property, tour the property, sign a bunch of documentation that says, I want to sell my house for this amount of money, give it to the realtor. They stage their house, they prepare it, they get it all ready to go, and then they list it on a public service platform like the MLS in order to then market it to the world, right? Like that is a motivated seller. That's somebody who wants to sell their property. And so deals can still be found on the MLS, and I don't want you to discount looking on Zillow or Realtor.com in order to find some of these opportunities. So let's go dive into Zillow, and I want to pull up this property and show you a little bit about the backstory of it. So the address, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Boom, this is it. And this makes me want to throw up down here because you're going to hear about what I sold it for. So this is the property. It was 3-bed, 2.5 bath, just shy of 2,000 square feet. And it was bank owned at the time. So when I looked at the property, as you can see here, if you scroll down and look at the price history, you can see I purchased this in September of 2009 for $185,000. 99 bucks a square foot. Not bad, not bad. You couldn't end up building it for 100 bucks a square foot. But it was still like a big number back then. You know, at this point in my life, I didn't really have a big income. I was trying to get things going in my entrepreneurial journey. I didn't have any W-2 income either. And so when I saw this listed, it was listed for about $250,000, but it was bank owned. And I remember early on in my real estate career, I went to a seminar and the guy on stage says, if you make an offer on a property that you're not embarrassed by, then you're offering too much money. And so I went in on this thing somewhere in the 150, 160 range, and we ended up settling at $185,000. Now, I didn't have W-2 income, so I couldn't qualify for the loan on this. What I ended up doing is I found somebody to co-sign on the loan with me. Somebody who did have W-2 income, who had a predictable job, predictable revenue, like income coming in, they could get the loan with me on it, help me build my credit, and at the same time, I could then qualify to purchase this. So I found it on the MLS. I gave it to my real estate agent. They then negotiated a deal for me, got it for $185,000. I realized when I was doing the walkthrough and everything that it needed at least $20,000 worth of work. I was able to then go and get a bank loan. And we got one of these FHA 3.5% down. Somebody co-signed it on it for me. So I really only needed around $8,000 or $10,000 in order to actually bring to closing. So this is what it looked like when I closed on the property. There was no carpet in any of the living room or dining room or family room areas. We had old beat up countertops. Appliances were all beat up. I needed to change out the hot water tank. All the paint colors were old. There were brooches on the ground, old fixtures, old hardware, but mostly cosmetic type of stuff. It had a new roof and pretty good bones overall. So a few things when improving the property that go a really long way, regardless of whether it's a buy and hold or a flip, is landscaping. Landscaping is a fairly low cost item that makes a big impact to it. And so we tore out the old bushes. I planted some new shrubs out front, cut the grass as best I could, trimmed back a whole bunch of weeds and everything in the backyard, and just cleaned up the exterior a little bit. We pressure washed all the siding to get some mold and stuff off of it. I repainted the garage door, and then I put up new sconces, light fixtures on the outside of the house. And that was about it. It already had a new roof, gutters were in good shape. Again, fixed the fencing and a couple other minor things, trimmed the tree back. But otherwise, exterior was in pretty decent shape. On the inside, I changed out all the light fixtures and moved everything over to that brushed nickel, which was real big about 15 years ago. We had all the ceilings and all the trim painted bright white. And then me and my buddies and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, Kate, went in and we painted all the rooms. And I picked some pretty bold colors. I had kind of like a taupe in the common areas. I used this like burnt orange color. And I think because I was working on it in October and I was big into like Oktoberfest and drinking some Oktoberfest beers and stuff. So I picked a burnt orange color, but it kind of worked. And then I painted the bedrooms like a bluish color and the bathrooms like a greenish color. And then we picked a simple carpet that was installed throughout. I didn't change any of the other flooring. We had hardwoods upstairs and then had some old looking tile, but it ended up being fine, like in the kitchen area. Got new appliances that were stainless appliances, and we ripped out the old countertop and put in Corian countertops, which were pretty nice. I probably would have done stone, but that was a lot more than what Corian was back then, and I was working on a shoestring budget. And then I got a bunch of furniture from like IKEA and Walmart that you put together on your own, and guess what? It worked for us. So let's dive into the economics of how it worked on a cash flow basis month to month. The principal and interest on my loan at the time was about $960 per month. It was just shy of $200,000 financed at about a 4.5% interest rate. So that's $960 a month. The insurance was about $2,000 per year. Pretty expensive because we're in a coastal area. And so that $2,000 a year ends up being about $165 per month. And then the taxes were about $960 a year, which is about $80 a month. So 80 plus 165 is 245, plus another $960 ends up being just over $1,200 per month of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. There wasn't too much maintenance type stuff because we just renovated the property. It was in pretty good shape. So there wasn't a big maintenance expense, right? I'm thinking about taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, and management. I'm self-managing, there's no expense there. So the only other thing was utilities. And everything was on an electric bill, there was no gas, and then we have water. Water's pretty inexpensive in South Carolina. Electric, not too bad. And then there was the cable and TV bill. So all in all, we spent about another $500 a month on those other utilities. So all in, it cost me about $1,700 a month in order to live in this house. I had two of my buddies, both from Ohio, two of my best friends. They were in my wedding and I was in their weddings, and still very, very close friends to this day. Moved down to Charleston when I was moving down there, and we're all like, let's all move down there and have some fun after college together. And so they ended up moving in. Now, you couldn't find a place to rent for under $1,000 or $1,200 a month, and I was able to have them come and live in our house, in my house. They each paid $500, so that covered $1,000 of the $1,200 mortgage, and we split utilities three ways. So that other $500 a month, for each of us, it was about $170 per month. So they paid essentially $670 a month each, and my share was $200 for the delta of the mortgage plus the $170. So my expense to live in this house was only $370 a month instead of $1,700 a month, all because I house hacked it and had 3 amazing years with a couple of my best buddies, and was able to then own a property that is usually a liability and turn it into an asset. So within a couple of years, I had actually acquired 9 other rental properties. We're going to be diving into all those and what the economics look like. It produced enough residual income that covered all the operating expenses, all the debt service for all those properties, and then gave me enough cash to pay for my own living expenses. And so, again, I wasn't rich, but I was technically financially free at the age of 25. and I chased a bunch of other shiny objects, and I got into other businesses, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and I was super arrogant and had a big ego, and ended up getting my legs taken out. I actually sold the other properties. The only one I had left was my own primary home. And in 2012, summer of 2012, I was completely broke. I had $80 in my bank account, and I had $25,000 in credit card debt from chasing these other business ventures and business opportunities. I was literally selling the furniture from my house, little side tables and futons and stuff like that, and DVDs back in the day. I was selling them on Craigslist for any money that I could get just so I can go and buy food and pay for the minimum payment on my credit card and make these payments on my house. It just came to a point where I decided that I needed to sell this house and move back to Ohio, and I moved back in with my parents at the age of 27. So you're gonna learn a lot of lessons throughout these first 10 rentals of what to do and what not to do. But here's a big one. Real estate saved me when I chased all these other stupid shiny objects and all these other business ventures. I came back to real estate and I was able to put this house on the market. And if you look, within 36 months of buying the property, I put the house back on the market for $250,000. And I ended up getting a buyer, and I ended up selling it for $250,000. I owed maybe about $180,000 on it at the time. And so it was a lady who had cash. She had inherited some money, but she didn't have good credit. And so we were able to do kind of like a wrap mortgage on the property where she came in, gave me $50,000 down, and then her mortgage was $200,000. Mine was about $180,000, $185,000. She made payments to me of around $1,400 a month, and then my payments were about $1,200 a month. So I made a delta on it of about $200 a month, and I got $50,000 down. With that $50,000, I paid off my 25 grand of credit card debt. I bought a ring for my girlfriend at the time and proposed to her. She's now my wife for 11 years, and moved back to Cleveland, Ohio. And so I was very humbled, but real estate saved my butt. And I was able to then, after moving back to Cleveland, Ohio, get back into real estate. And I bought my first apartment building, which was an 8-unit apartment building, for $30,000 in Cleveland once I got back to Ohio. And so it allowed me to kind of get my feet back underneath me and then propel me to build the business that I built today. I wouldn't be as good of a steward of capital today if I didn't go through those difficult times back then. So that lady who bought the house for me for $250,000, I was like, this poor woman, I really pulled a fast one on her, right? She's never gonna get her money back out of this thing ever. Except, here's what happened in Charleston, South Carolina over the past decade. Today that property is worth over $600,000. And so she has accumulated over $350,000 of equity from this house, which is why you don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and then you wait. So that is my first rental experience of owning a rental property, how I house hacked it, and that parlayed me to buy 9 more rentals in Charleston, South Carolina within a span of about 24 months. I'm going to share exactly how I accumulated all 10 rental units, including this one. You just watch this video. But here's a whole playlist of the other videos on how I accumulated each of those and a case study on each of those properties too. So check these out. Let's get you your first 10 rentals.